All right. Welcome, everyone. This is the School District of Prescott Board of Education regular meeting. I will call this meeting to order subject to Section 1983 Wisconsin statutes. Our first item is to adopt the agenda. Rick, is there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, administration, based on the time and things like that, with regards to the updated information that we want to explain with the levy, is we'd like to have Mike Koika move to position 1 to give you an update on the 10-year plan and move the referendum to the end.
Yeah. And then everything else
stays the same.
Yeah. So Mike can get out of here when he goes through his building and grounds plan.
Correct.
Okay. Anything else, Rick?
Nope. Everything else is good.
We'll take a motion to adopt the agenda with the changes.
I move to approve the agenda as presented with the noted changes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That carries. Next item is Pledge of Allegiance. Pat, you want to lead us?
Yep. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So next item is public comment, recognition of visitors. Rules for public comment are as follows. Please approach a podium one at a time, stating your name, municipality, and topic you'd like to address. Allotted time is 3 minutes per individual, or 6 if you're representing a group that is present at the meeting. And if you're representing a group, please call out the individuals that you are on behalf of representing, and you'll get 6 minutes. All comments should be directed to the board and not to staff or other participants. The board will not act on any comments that are made during the meeting. The presiding officer may direct the district administrator to follow up with that individual at a later date. Public comment section will be limited to 30 minutes unless board action is taken to extend. And please refer to our public comment policy for a full agenda for the description of this section of the meeting. One thing I'll just point out, since we just got out of informational, if folks have comments or questions that you would like us to address, you can state your question and we'll record it, and we'll try to answer that in the information discussion item at that time. So anybody care to be recognized at this time? Going twice. Anyone? All right. We're good. We'll move on. Good news.
We'll start with our student rep.
So the student leadership group is volunteering at Feed My Starving Children in December, packing bags of food for those in need. The Inclusivity Club has been working to add a section to the student handbook concerning discrimination around Prescott High School, and are going to sell candy grams next month to raise money to donate. On Halloween, students in the National Honor Society collected non-perishable food items and donated them to the local food pantry. And on the athletic side of the school, in the last month, the girls volleyball team have won regionals for the second year in a row. The boys football team advanced to round 2 of playoffs. The girls golf team was runner-up at state, and the boys golf team was 3rd at sectionals.
Thank you. All right. For a quick superintendent update, this is the first meeting that we've had, a regular board meeting since November 5th. On behalf of both the students and our staff, it's a great honor to see the investment of our community to support our students and staff moving forward. It does put the district in a much better financial situation for the years to go ahead, and appreciate the support of many different individuals behind the scenes, and also our school board members that went out to each of the municipalities that agreed to meet with us and for us to be able to present that information. And we are done for the administrative part tonight.
All right. Let's move on then. School business, the first item is the consent agenda. In the consent, we have the October 16th regular board meeting minutes, finance reports, personnel reports for non-licensed staff, and Alice training reports. So there's 4 items in there. Did I get all that? Yeah, I got it all.
Yeah.
So that's in the consent. Is there anything that the board would like to have pulled out of consent?
No.
Okay. I will adopt the consent agenda as presented. Are there any objections? No objections. The consent agenda is adopted. Thank you. We will move on to business. Consider personnel reports. We have resignation.
We have one resignation, Kayla Ellis, a high school para. We have no new hires and no retirements.
All right. Board, any questions or comments here?
No question.
Okay, we can entertain a motion.
I move to approve the personnel report for the licensed staff listed above.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That one carries. Item C is elect a WASB delegate and alternate delegate for the 2025 WASB convention.
So this is an event that's held down in Milwaukee. It's a joint professional development opportunity for school boards to go down and work with other school boards on governance. It also is shared with the superintendents within the 421 districts. That occurs between January 22nd and 24th. We do have to elect delegates to adopt the School Board Association platform with regards to motions that they would like to put forward.
All right. So we need to, I do the WASB delegate. Do this for the assembly, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I can do it again.
Okay.
And we need an alternate.
I think I'm the only other person going, is that right? Are you going?
No, I'm not going this year.
Okay, so I think I can be the alternate then.
Works. All right. Anybody want to make a motion on that?
Sure. I move to elect Mike Matzik as WASB delegate and Tanya Hullab as an alternate delegate for the 2025 WASB convention taking place January 22nd through the 24th, 2025 in Milwaukee.
I'll second.
It's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. And last item on the business is school pictures request for proposals.
And I'm going to have Rick Montreal come forward. As you know, school pictures are used both for yearbooks, for families, gifts, and then also for badges for our staff and also student IDs at the secondary level. I'll have Rick describe why we're going for an RFP and what it includes.
Yeah, what I tried to do is just make the timeline there that you can see on the screen as far as where we were, at least the last time we talked about this. It would have been 3 years ago because we had signed on for a 3-year deal at that time. So going back to 21 and 22, it was determined at that time that we were going to be looking for a new provider. Mr. Kozmowski had been doing that, and he generously looped me into that process, so I've been more involved ever since. We had 5 bids then came in during that timeline, and a team evaluated the 5 bids and decided to go with Jostens. We brought that recommendation to the board in February of 2022, and then I would say that since then, we've had some repeated customer service issues. We've had staffing problems, and maybe a few other things, but to keep it simple, throughout the 36 months. So then in late October, we started talking about the process once again and decided then, kind of talking to schools and stakeholders, we'd go to RFP again. I think Courtney linked the actual RFP to the agenda, but right now I guess I would ask the board if there's any questions with what we're presenting.
Pat, do you have any questions?
Not right now, no.
Tanya?
No questions.
Vicki?
No.
Helen?
No.
Katie, you have any questions on this one?
I got no questions.
No? How long does the process go, Rick, usually?
There is a timeline on the actual RFP. I also have it here. Let me just pull that up.
So we'll get,
It's by, I think, January 8th, Wednesday, January 8th.
Yeah, so this will go public if the board accepts after this meeting. I think the deadline for the RFPs to come in would be January 8th. Yep. And then the next week, the team would get together to evaluate what proposals come in. We have a protocol and a process to do that we followed last time that we'll also follow this time. The team will be assembled of various stakeholders throughout the district from different buildings, and likely also a parent member from the community.
So we'll have something are we going to be approving? I assume if it's an RFP, we'll be approving. It'll come to us by January, February?
I will submit something to you in February.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Rick, how many responses do we hope to get? How many do we think we'll get back?
The last time we went through the process, we had 5. I thought that was a really good number,
Yeah.
but it's kind of hard to predict. If we get 5 again, though, I'd be pretty happy with that.
Okay, all right. Hopefully, just from my perspective, hopefully it's, probably minimum of 3 would be good. Good to get to evaluate, right? So.
Yeah, I think there's interest out there in partnering with Prescott. I have been contacted. I just haven't been able to really say until the process worked through.
Sure. And this is for 36 months, so
Yep.
that'll be laid out in the proposals, and you guys will evaluate it based on escalators for 3 years.
Right,
Okay.
yep.
All right.
Thanks.
You can take a motion.
I move to approve Prescott School District to seek proposals from qualified vendors and contractors to provide school picture services for our next school picture cycle.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That one carries. Thanks, Rick. Moving on to information and discussion, and we're going right to the 10-year buildings and grounds plan with Mr. Hoyka.
Yeah, so, Mike, you want to come forward? Mike's going to walk you through kind of the history. This is a long-range plan that he inherited when he began, and he'll show you how it's going to transform from a Word document to an Excel document. But it's also an opportunity, I think, as a superintendent and for a school board to thank Mike for his leadership. A lot of the work in infrastructure that has allowed us to flip our buildings, be right-sized with the grade levels, and to have the academic programming that Michael Kosmowski will present later today, is that the facilities that we have are top shelf. And we're very blessed because our community invested in 2022 to provide $15 million to be infused into our structures so that all learning spaces were appropriate for the grade levels. So Mike, do you want to walk us through the 4 documents? And then also the importance of this is it will come back, and he wants to show you how it's changed, what he's winnowed down, but it's important next month is that you'll kind of adopt the 10-year plan, and that is tied to Fund 46. Fund 46 is a trust fund. It is money that's set aside and can only be used for capital investments. And that started 5 years ago, and it'll allow us to try to offset having to go to the community to provide for infrastructure unless it's sizable like we did in 2022. So Mike?
Yeah, could we start with the facilities and ground referendum one?
Sure.
Just quick update on that. Being it was a $15 million project, like kind of where we're at and what we got left to do. So I updated this last October, and as you can see, what was done in 2023, what was done in 2024. And so we got a majority of this stuff through there. They include a complete roof at one school, 50% of a roof at another school, a lot of HVAC equipment, a lot of exhaust fans were replaced. Intermediate school 125 got all new univentilators and air conditioning on the top floor, air conditioning in the gym. Malone Elementary got finished improving the air quality in there with new VAV boxes, and the other part of the buildings that didn't have it, and adding air conditioning, so that building is 100% air conditioned now. And then also we, elementary got all LED lighting, new ceiling tiles. 125 Elm got All emergency lighting is all LED now and lighting on the outside. So you can see that I'm not going to go line by line, but boilers, we replaced 5 boilers, a lot of electrical switch gears in 3 buildings. So long-term things upgraded that will be there for generations. So I just want to give a little update on that, where we're at, what we've done. Some of the projects that are approved yet, they're going to be done next summer. The grease trap and receptor for at the middle school. We got a magnetic filter coming for the heating loop to capture any medical particles that may damage a pump. That's been approved. That's be going in maybe this winter yet. Finalize some emergency lighting at the intermediate school. Some other projects we're looking at, depending on where we're at with the budget stuff, be meeting with Mark and Johnson some tomorrow and start reviewing some of that stuff. Gym fans, intermediate school, some replacing the final cabinet heaters at the elementary, looking at some sinks and cabinetry in some of the classrooms at the elementary, restroom partitions, and just there's a lot of little stuff in there. We just want to give an update where we're at. We're not done with this project. We still have another summer. Hope to complete everything by then. So.
Mike, can I just really quick on that? So like the referendum, we got how many years after it passed? You got 3, is it 3 years to finish? How does that work? Do you?
I'm not sure the exact
date.
Yeah, but I think once you start the projects, you have to be.
Because this will be our 3rd summer.
This would be the 3rd summer, yes.
And I think we're trying to finish up whatever's left in this summer, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing I also did, we have a worksheet 4, which is a worksheet I use, and I put all this equipment that the school has on there for as far as HVAC stuff. You guys have access to this too, but there's one for each school. And you can see on there a lot of the stuff was updated, the years, when it is, life expectancy and all that. So. And this tool is used for long-term planning, and this will tie into the long-range plan. This is one of the tools that we use to keep track of everything on that. So it's just it has everything in one site.
Yeah.
For that. And of course, our old long-range plan, which is just on a dock, which we've have used. Well, for 20 years. We'll be going away. This is the last time we'll have this format. And as you can see on this long-range plan, this is going to be our new. This is going to be the
new one.
Format for our new long-range plan. So anything that was on the old long-range plan, which is mostly done because of the facilities and ground referendum. So, but if there's anything left on here, it will get transferred onto this format. And what we have now, we'll have a summary page, and that's when it starts to be a project, where we're going to go out and get prices and bid. Where we're going to get the information for that is, one is off this worksheet tool. And then we have a tab for each site, each school. And each school will have whatever projects it might be in that, whether it be VHV equipment, will it be lighting, will it be flooring, will it be windows, anything that involves that facility will be in there. There's one for each site, so we can track it that way. We also have a tab now just to go in and look at roofs. So before, you used to have to page through the old dock and find it in there. So there'll be one just for roofs, and that will be itemized out, when they were installed, what type of roof it is, when the recommended replacement is, what type of, did we get a 20-year or 30-year warranty with it, and that information. Parking lots are a big expense. We did a lot of parking lots in the last year or two with the facilities and grounds referendum. So there's one on there to track seal coating, replacements, anything to do with that, line painting. And then we even took it all further to go for the pack. Because, as that building ages, you're going to have lighting, and that has HVAC stuff in it. And a soundboard, that all has life expectancies. Technology, we have a tab for that, so just stuff we're moving forward to, and that's, any questions?
Yeah. Pat, do you have any questions here? Is there anybody else?
No. Well, first of all, I think for everybody in the room who maybe hasn't heard this before, I want to say again, thanks to Mike and all the administrators that we have in the district. Taking on these, summer slam construction projects, in addition to their regular job, is incredible. And the amount of work that gets added to their plate is substantial. And thank you for all that you guys do. It's a distraction to your day, to your time off. So thank you very much. It's great. I mean, that I'm pretty passionate about this stuff, so I love the fact that you're moving to the new long-range plan format. Tell me real quick, so what's going to be your process now? So as you identify the things that are going to come up and the time spans of when they're going to come up, what are you going to use to come up with like the cost estimates? Or you got a process kind of for that?
The process for costing, some will be, what knowledge I have on it. Other parts will be reaching out to vendors in that business. And getting estimates and cost of that. Cost stuff has changed dramatically from what it was in the last few years. So the way I did it in the past to get prices and stuff, that's not going to work anymore. It's going to be more having to deal with a lot more, dealing with more vendors and working that way to try and get prices.
Sure.
So it's going to be different because things have changed so much and prices have gone up so much. So.
And maybe this part of the question's for Rick, but I assume that once we can kind of build this out, one thing that we can do, right? I mean, we're not going to know the cost of something 8 years out from now, but what we can do is we can apply general rule of thumbs for inflation, and that's the tool that we can use on a year-to-year basis of what either needs to be in Fund 46 or what we need to plan for, true long-range cost. So that's the plan.
Actually, it's a really good way to kind of tie in both November 5th with the referendum, the long-term plan, and Vision 2035. This will be the first time that the school district in almost 10 years is in a financial situation and with its facilities up to date, where we can now say, what's the next decade going to look like? And have partnerships with our stakeholders, our community, from students, families, staff, and individuals that use our amenities. It'll give us an opportunity that, as Mike has to prioritize, there's only $1, and we can't spend it multiple times, yet there's more wants than there are the ability to fund it. But by having this long-term plan, we can take care of the infrastructure and the maintenance and start thinking about what are the grand plans with regards to something we've talked about during the referendum. Do all 4 buildings retain 4 instructional programs? There's going to be a cost to move. What goes into that facility? If we want to update the track to be over here so there can be multiple teams, those are the things that we need our community to talk about. Are there academic programs that we currently do not provide that we want to go to the next level? This is going to be the time to engage, and I think that's where Vision 2035 and prioritizing is going to be incumbent on a school board and also its community.
Maybe last comment too, Mike, and I think you shared this a couple of months ago, but from our facility, and Vicki, you were a part of it, so remind me, but when we met as a facilities committee, right, we bucketed up everything that we saw on that previous worksheet, and they got prioritized. And I believe, right, that by the end of next summer, we are on track to be able to have completed 100% of those priorities.
It's going to be real close.
Real close, right? I mean, pending the outcome of...
the last budget is, but I'm hoping to hit everything on there.
Yeah. For sure, I believe in the stuff that was in the top 2
all the
categories.
high priority stuff.
Those are all done.
We went with that right away. I would say we majority of the next level down.
Yep.
So now it's the very
It's-
last.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, thanks.
Okay, all right.
I'm good, Mike, for now.
Just for clarity, Pat, the facilities committee that was put together for the facilities referendum that was passed.
Like 5 years ago?
Yes.
Yep.
Those projects. Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Anything else? Tanya, did you have anything?
I don't really have any questions other than comments. Since I've been on the board, we've looked at these lists and I've learned a ton from you about all of this stuff. And this looks fairly empty at this time, and I am looking forward to the next 10 years where we are really starting to fill that in and projecting what our vision is. And we started to do some of this work right before COVID. We kind of tried to hit it again shortly after. And now I think we're at a place that we have to move forward. One of the questions, and it was brought up here, that I went out with Dr. Spacuzza, Mike sometimes, to probably 5 or 6 different kind of times before the last referendum, just connecting with cities or different groups. And it came up at almost every one, do we need to have all of our buildings that we have? Can we start combining if we're decreasing enrollment? And really, this is the time that we're going to start talking about that and really make some questions, because there's some financial impact long-term, and we want to make sure that long-term we're financially responsible with all of our buildings and stuff. So, yeah, I look forward to it. Thank you.
Vicki?
Yeah, it was fun looking at the sheet where it said 2023, 2024, and I'm looking at all of that and I'm going, there isn't much left on this list anymore, so.
There isn't.
And then you page on to the new one and what it looks like, and I'm like, that is very organized. Has he put anything on there? Well, there's nothing to really put on there yet, so.
They'll
Few things.
We'll start adding.
You'll see things by December.
There'll be a
Yep.
few things,
It'll
but
fill it
yeah,
fast,
it's just,
unfortunately.
Yeah.
you've done an amazing job. Your group has done an amazing job of getting all this stuff done and squeezing in downtimes when there's a vacation or a break at school. We've got summer break, spring break, whatever. It's getting in there and even getting outside groups to come in and get stuff done when, we've got a fall break or we've got spring break. So, yeah, fantastic job just hammering through all of this stuff.
Holiday break, there'll be contractors here.
Yeah.
Some stuff.
Yep.
Some smaller projects that you can get done in a day or two.
Yeah, yep, but easier when there's nobody else around. So good. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, Helen?
Kind of just the same thing everyone else said. It's good to have it on kind of a different format, but it looks like we've taken care of a lot, and there's a to look moving forward, kind of, sorry, I have no voice today, but moving forward to add to that list to make it even better for students and teachers. So that's it.
Katie, anything? Any comments or?
All sounds great.
All sounds great. I agree. Ditto. We'll move on. Thanks a lot, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Next item is teaching and learning update. Michael Kozmowski.
Are you going to drive?
Sure.
Evening, Board. Just here to present just a little from the Teaching and Learning Department. This is the time of the year that two things really happen. We start talking about the academic calendar for next year, which I know Katie's going to be really interested in. And then we're going to talk about our finalized report cards came out yesterday from the state of Wisconsin. So every school district in the state of Wisconsin now is public of where our rankings are and where we ended up. So we'll spend a little time talking about that, continuation of our discussion last month. So academic calendar, just sort of the process of how do we come up with the academic calendar from year to year. Act 10, when Act 10 came through in 2011, this no longer is a negotiable item. It's a board action item. So our process changed since then. But one of the things that I do is I contact Chris McGee over at St. Joe's. We kind of look at the calendar together, certain days that they value as off and certain days they want on as well. So we kind of come to a shared agreement on some of that and where we can make that work. Then we create a calendar. We look at we have staff do a survey every 4 or 5 years. Last year we did a survey about priorities. So we look at those, prioritizing getting out of school earlier in the year versus the way the calendar landed this year. We have a full 2 weeks at the winter break. But then we create a calendar that meets the DPI requirements, supports our programming, moves us towards that visible learning model that we're after, and then those priorities of how do you make that all balance, right? So next month I'll be bringing forward some draft calendars for the board to look at, and then information discussion for December, and then typically January is when you guys take action on that unless there's more work to be done. Some of the questions I get asked, and since we have a nice crowd here tonight, I thought I'd go over this slide. Originally, I had this hidden because school board, this hasn't changed for us, but how many school days are required? If you look at our neighboring districts, everyone's got a little bit different number. That was one of the things that went away about a decade ago, is not a number of days, it's a minimal hours of instruction, and you can see what our requirements are there. Currently in Prescott, at one point it was 180 days. We have 171 days, but then we also expanded our day length. So you can see there how many additional days. There used to be days where we'd build in snow days into the calendar, and we no longer do that. Instead, we have a certain number of hours that we're over. So also with the advancement of technology, the one-to-one movement that we have 612, we now look at, are there times when we can do distance learning, right, and keep the momentum going, the progress, the academic progress, versus adding another day into June. And we all know after Memorial Day, additional days added onto the calendar aren't necessarily beneficial, as beneficial as keeping the learning going. Return to learn days, so we have those. Those are optional days at the end of summer in August. Those count as our summer school, and what that really matters for is our FTE count. We just talked about declining enrollment, right, and looking at that, and that all comes with funding. We did expand that to 1 additional day this year, so it impacts our funding for 3 years, but we went from 12 FTEs in 2023 summer to 22 FTEs. So it's adding additional 10 students to our district by adding that 1 day into our calendar. So financially it's very important for us, but it's also really a great time for our kids to get in, meet the new teachers, start doing some of that community building that we have in the classrooms. At the intermediate school, we actually started screening our students academically right away. So that way we were able to get to interventions and meet those gaps, right out of the chute. We weren't waiting 2-3 weeks into school to do that. When can a school year officially start? September 1 is by state law. You can't ask for a waiver if you have major construction and things like that. But September 1, which next year, September 1, is Labor Day. So our calendar will obviously start September 2nd next year, our official calendar. Why is there typically a day off in October? I get asked this by parents sometimes. It aligns to the MEA weekend. We used to have Western Wisconsin. We used to have professional development on that day. That has gone away, but it also aligns to our parent-teacher conference late nights that we have our staff here. So that's typically a day that shows up on our priorities list of staff as a day that they would really like off. And then we did move last year to move our professional development days that are within the school year. They used to be typically aligned to quarters. Only one of our schools are on a quarter. Everyone else is on trimester. But why do we value the trimester over the quarter? And it's really because at the high school level, we have truly different new courses being turned on from one day to the next. Mm-hmm. So giving those teachers some time to not only turn their classroom over, but their curriculum and really get into the swing of things, where we do have that at the quarters at the middle school, but the quarters at the middle school is the same courses, it's just a different batch of students. So it's a little bit less prep there, so that's why we prioritize that over the other. But that really is our calendar process, and again, like I said, next month I'll be coming forward with a couple different options for the board to weigh in on. Unless there's something the board directionally wise maybe has gotten some feedback about this year's calendar from community members that you'd want considered before you see some mock-ups next month.
Anybody got any questions? Helen? Vicky?
Nope.
Anything?
I don't have questions.
Yeah, we'll wait until next month.
And when I did flip the calendar over, just looking one year to the next year's calendar sets up very similar to this year's calendar. You know, Thanksgiving is later again. There's only 3 solid weeks between Thanksgiving and Christmas time. So that impacts the calendar movement a little bit as well. So, all right, the next part of my presentation, the exciting part that I get to come up here every year and talk about, is our report card and where we are compared to others around us. We talked last month about the academic achievement. That was the ELA and math scores had come out across the state. We looked at some comparisons to the Middle Border Conference and even to our neighboring larger districts, River Falls, Hudson, New Richmond, and then where we landed on there. And just a reminder of where we were on the 2024 spring assessments. We're the #1 district in the Middle Border Conference, both in our overall math and ELA scores. Our middle school #1 math and ELA, elementary #1 math and ELA. And you can see at the high school, we're right at the top in the high school as well. So a lot of things to be proud of. Now that information goes onto our report card, as well as the last 2 years of academic information and up to 6 years of attendance and graduation rates. And that all gets coalesced into a report card for every school district across the state. The purpose of the report card is to identify strengths that we have and build on those, and then also pinpoint areas of need and improvement. We actually start that process in August when we first get our first look at our state assessment data previous to the report card coming out. But knowing our data, we can already start to identify some of those gap areas that we want to double down on and move some of our resources to, and then other areas that we want to sort of get the flywheel going and continue to expand those areas. So the report card is based on point value. It's not a percentile, it's a point. And then each point category, you get different rankings. One thing I will say is we're going to get overall points. DPI does say you should never compare points. And the reason why is because like your academic and growth are based on your free and reduced lunch numbers. So in Prescott, we're about 20% free and reduced lunch numbers. So the state will say, well, academically, you should be higher than, say, Ellsworth, who's around 40% free and reduced lunch numbers. They should have more growth and maybe not quite as high academics. So every district, and even within the district, every school is treated slightly different. So looking at the overall points to make a comparison is not a good way to compare. A better way to compare is a couple years ago, the state started putting out percentile ranks in each category. And they are ranking you from 0 to 100 in the entire state of Wisconsin. If we lined up all the elementary schools, let's say, and we looked at their academics, where's Prescott? If we lined up all the middle schools, where's their growth? So I'll share a little bit of that with you as well. So just the report card overall, there's 4 main categories that they call priority areas. The #1 is achievement. And achievement, as you can see, it's a weighted value. It's weighted based on the category within the state assessment. Are they meeting expectations? Are they exceeding expectations? Are they approaching expectations? All those categories get different point values, and then those point values also get weighted by the year. So it's a double weighting system. This is our district report card, so all of our data gets dumped into as though we're one big school. So this is our school district in the dark blue. So you can see in achievement, English language arts, we scored 77.5. And then compared to all other K-12 districts in the state, the average was 58.3. And then in mathematics, 77.0 points we earned, where compared to all K-12 in the state, 57.6. And you can see year over year, 23 to 24, our math stayed the same, or excuse me, our ELA stayed the same. Our math is where we saw that growth, 77 points earned versus 74, and that ended up with an overall category growth as well. Next area that we're going to look at is growth. In growth, we use a value-added growth model in the state of Wisconsin. And what that's really doing, and that diagram's trying to explain to you there, is we're going to take all kids that started at a certain score. Right? So here are all the students in the state that, let's say, had 280 on their ELA score. And then what they're going to do is they're going to see what did they do this following year and what's the average. So they'll create this average, and then they'll say, did your student on an individual level, are we beating the average? or did we not grow quite at the same rate and we are below the average? So it's really trying to compare apples to apples. It's not taking an average of all students, it is treating each student as an individual, but then it's treating each score range as an individual score range as well. So that way we're not comparing our lowest fourth grade students to our highest fourth grade students. We're comparing our low fourth grade students to all the other low fourth grade students in the state, and our high students to all other high students in the state. Again, growth is a weighted average. It's based on 3 years worth of data. You don't have growth show up until you get to fourth grade. We start in third grade with our state assessments. So there's no growth in grade 3, but from 3 to 4, 4 to 5, and all the way up to 11th grade. So we have those growth values that are calculated in. This is our actual growth, and what this graph is showing here is we have English language arts on the left. This is covered up, and it says mathematics here on the right. This is our overall category. We scored 75.5 points. You can see where what we did in ELA growth versus the state, and what we did in math growth versus the state. There's a scale down here of 0 to 6, and right here in the middle is 3. 3 is the average growth, what they expect. Those are the expectations that you will meet the average. If you're not meeting the average, you'd be to the left of this bar in a white box. And if you are meeting the average, you'd be to the right of this bar in a blue box. And these are all our different student categories. You can see we do have some categories that don't have a box. And the reason why is if it's less than 20 students in that group, the DPI will redact that information for the public. The school district, we do get that information. We do know who those kids are, but that's not to be shared with the public for any group less than 20. So what you can see here is that every single group, every category of all of our students versus our students with disabilities. You see the students with disabilities here at ELA actually had the most growth. They're the furthest to the right on this bar graph. So every single student demographic group in ELA outperformed the average. And if we look over at mathematics, it's the gap between the line and where we are is even further. There actually are values in there. I'm starting to show my age. I can't read those numbers anymore from this distance. But it's something we should be really proud of, because we just showed you academically in the Middle Border Conference in all of Western Wisconsin, we're at the top in nearly everything. And now you can see in terms of growth, we have really high growth. So being good academically is one thing, but being able to take those students, meet them where they're at, and then take them to the next level. A lot of times you can do one really well and not the other, and we're really doing both very well. So that's something that we should all be proud of. Our students, our families, and our teachers. Priority area number 3 is our target group outcomes is what it's called. It's basically our bottom quartile of students academically. So they look at the previous year, where are the students that are academically at the bottom end, and really it's a check on, are you only growing your middle and high students? What are you doing for your low students? Are you truly meeting their needs and then filling their gaps? So they basically get their own mini report card. They have achievement on it. They have their growth. We expect those kids to grow more, but not achieve as well, right? Because they're starting from a lower spot. So they weight growth as more your chronic absenteeism, which is if they've missed more than 10% of school. So we're in Prescott, that'd be 17 days. If you miss more than 17 days, that would show that you're not here as much. So therefore, the reason for that, how do we fill gaps when you're not at school? And then high school graduation and attendance counts for 15. So they get a mini calculation here. And what this is showing you is here's our target group in overall achievement in ELA, and there's our non-target group. So these would be our top quartile or bottom quartile of students, and this would be our top 75% of students. As we can see there in achievement, they aren't keeping pace, but that's the reason why they're in this group. But if we look over at growth, you can see how we grew our not our lowest students, and look how closely we grew our lowest students. And that's really what we're trying to focus on with this group, is how do we close that gap in learning. And we do it by growing them. You can actually see in mathematics, our lowest kids grew faster than our not lowest kids. So that's huge. It's huge to be able to do that as an organization across all of our buildings. And then you can see very similar chronic absenteeism. Yep, these kids are absent a little bit more than our norm group, but in terms of graduation, they're nearly identical. And then our final one is priority area on track to graduation. And what this looks at is absenteeism, looks at our graduation rate, it looks at third grade ELA. You can see our third grade ELA score versus the state, we're higher in that area. And then 8th grade mathematics. And third grade ELA or reading and 8th grade math are two huge indicators in education on how successful a child will be. Able to read by the end of third grade, able to keep up with your peers in mathematics by the end of 8th grade. Those are two milestones that the state puts a focus on in the report card. I'm ahead of myself. So before I go any further, any questions from the board on the 4 priority areas and how they're calculated?
Any questions?
Katie probably would want to start on this one. So.
I got no questions.
No questions, Katie?
Is well explained.
All right. Down here, Tanya or Pat, any questions?
Nope, no questions right now.
And overall, the calculations did not change from last year to this year. So that way, really for the last 3 years, they have not had any major calculation changes. We really are comparing apples to apples.
So that growth we're seeing, that's where we're getting that interventionists are critical to help.
The interventionists
close that
typically are
gap,
that bottom quartile.
And
Yep.
bringing that growth up is what,
Correct. So
Okay.
over the last few years, the board has really prioritized additional interventionists.
Yep.
Right? Corey Morning's moved out of the classroom, he's a math intervention. We had other interventions at the time. Now, with the cuts, we did eliminate one at the secondary level, so we'll have to see how that impacts. But with the interventions that we had in place, that bottom quartile, which is a lot of students with special needs, and then our low gen ed, those are the ones that are seeing those interventionists. So our interventionists did a really nice job of moving those kids forward.
for the last couple of years, that is making that difference.
Right. If you look at 4 years ago,
Yeah.
our bottom quartile did not grow the way they grew last year. It has
Fantastic.
closed.
I am really curious, and this isn't a question, this is kind of maybe an observation I'm looking for next year's. We did have to make a pretty significant cut that impacted classrooms, it impacted teacher aides, it impacted some of our interventionists, and I'm curious, to see next year where this hits when it comes to growth and achievement, and hope that, it's something that we can absorb, but we knew that this would be a hardship for our teachers and all of our staff in the building. So I think that it'll be interesting for us to reflect back on that and learn from that.
All right, so what I've done here is I've just taken some snips. So this is our overall score as a district. We're at 79.4 points is what we got overall, which means we exceed the expectations DPI puts on us as a district based on our demographics. There are links to the detailed report cards, and I'll show you where you can go and look at those. At our high school, you can see our overall score at high school was 68.8. They're meeting their expectations. Prescott Middle School, here's a really high point for us. They moved into the significantly exceeds expectation category by growing 6 points. That's huge. So that's worth celebrating. The intermediate and elementary schools, we've been at significantly exceeds expectations. We maintain that this year as well, just over 90 points scored there. So those are our overall score categories. There is additional information, but if we look at our district, just how do we rank compared to the state? So these are snips out of each one of those categories, and what the state does is it tells you your district. Again, if we lined up all K-12 districts in the state of Wisconsin in order from 0 being the lowest and 100 being the highest, in academic achievement, we're at 89.7 with rounding, we're at 90%. We're the top 10 in the entire state of Wisconsin as a district in achievement. And then you look at growth, and again, it's really difficult to get both, but you can see our growth is even higher. We're the 92nd percentile in the state of Wisconsin in growth. And then again, talking about our interventionists, our special education, our students that are in that bottom quartile, we're in the 94th percentile in the state of Wisconsin. So not only are we achieving at a very high level, we're growing at an even higher level than 94% of the schools in the state of Wisconsin. And then our last one, our on track to graduation. And again, that's taking into consideration absenteeism, graduation rate, third grade reading and eighth grade in math. We're at the top 15% in the state. So that being our lowest category, again, some of that is largely due to absenteeism and getting kids here and partnering with families and making sure we're getting kids here whenever we can. But life happens, and we know there's trips that grandma and grandpa are only here so long, and hunting season only is a certain week in Wisconsin, so certain teachers even take their kids out for that. So I think as a district, obviously, top 10 in any one of these categories, most districts would be tickled pink. We're top 10 in 3 out of 4 categories. How do we compare then to our middle border conference counterparts? So again, these aren't the overall scores, these are percentile ranks. So this is truly comparing apples to apples. So the 4 different categories are across the top. So in achievement, again, the number I just gave you is 89.7% in the state of Wisconsin. This is where everyone else is in our middle border conference, including, and new to our conference is Altoona, so Altoona's in there. New Richmond is not, neither is River Falls, Hudson. We do have those numbers. We outscore most of them in all these categories as well. There are a few where Hudson is a little bit higher in overall achievement, but Dr. Scusa didn't want me to put that one on there, so that way when he talks to the next superintendent.
The one that sticks out the most to me is the second one here, which is our growth, and that comparison from 91.6% to the next closest is 68.9%. That's wonderful, and that's all of our kids that are already starting off a little bit behind our peers, as well as growing the top 75% out too, so
Right.
it's wonderful.
Yeah, that growth category includes 100% of our students. The target growth category are those bottom students, which are even a higher rate than our overall.
Which is wonderful.
So that's where we are.
And Michael, just to go back, and I think that it shouldn't be lost, I think. Obviously, achievement matters, and that's something we take pride in, but also to be able to show that we can take students at any level, whether or not they're high, middle, and low, and be able to accelerate their growth. That's the responsibility of a public school organization. I think the continuous improvement model that teaching and learning that we put in place, the backing and support by a school board to have collaborative Mondays for our teachers that become teacher leaders at every single grade level, every content area. We have professional learning communities where staff step up in their expertise. Michael oversees them on a monthly basis, but then they have roles and responsibilities. It is not by accident that this is occurring. It is an organizational structure. Michael should take a lot of pride in the work that he's done, the administrative team, but then the partnership with our teachers is invaluable. And I think that many districts have asked us, what is the secret sauce? It's not magic, but it is hard, focused work and dedicated work. And I think that our staff should take great pride when you see these numbers, because ultimately it's in the benefit of our youth, our future leaders, and for our community.
More information, so this slideshow, as well as all of our report cards, if you want to dig into an individual report card, those are all on the Teaching and Learning website. There's bit.ly, you can find it on our district website, all of our, everything's posted there, and if there's anyone that digs into something and has a question, I'd be more than willing to have a conversation and meet with you. And like I told our PLC leaders yesterday, we met with them after school. This came out yesterday morning at about 4:30 a.m. and like I told the group, I woke up early to make sure we had this ready for today. So it's something that I really enjoy looking at as well. So I'm just glad that I get to present this every year. Again, this is a community celebration. It's not a teaching and learning. It's not just the school district. It's the whole community, and we should all take a lot of pride in what we've got here in Prescott, and able to support that going forward is very important. So thank you all.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, Michael. All right. Well done. We'll move on to the next item is transition readiness grant presentation.
And Sandy Strand, our Director of Student Services, will present. Do you have slides?
Yeah, they're on here.
Good evening, members of the board and Dr. Spikuza. I am going to be sharing with you, I think I may have shared this at the back to school like luncheon or something. I was really excited because we found out in early August that Prescott was awarded a transition readiness grant, and that this grant, go ahead, you can go ahead to the next slide. The grant was started in 2017 under Act 59. And it was budgeted at about $1.5 million. And it's intended to support students with disabilities to successfully transition to competitive work and post-secondary education environments after high school. And in special education in particular, we have indicators that we have to monitor. And actually, I was excited to see Barb Bowen here because for a number of years, Barb has done all of our transition phone calls. So after a student graduates the next year, we contact every student that has graduated who has an IEP and ask what they're currently doing. It supports initiatives in districts for possibly transportation options, including contracted services or vehicle purchases, competitive integrated employment training, such as Project Search, which is a program that is housed out of the River Falls School District at the River Falls Hospital, post-secondary tuition or supports for students, and then transition training for staff members. And this year, I went ahead and applied for about $28,000. If you could advance to the next slide, please. To address the following. To address the number of students with disabilities who obtain competitive community-based employment as compared to their non-disabled peers. To try and align the special ed curricular content with the alternative standards, also with the enhancement of transition programming, and to support students in attending Project Search, which is this collaborative program I mentioned. Project Search itself for one student costs about $17,000, and that doesn't include the transportation fees. I was very excited, you can go to the next slide, to hear then that we were awarded $25,008 out of the request. And with that money, we are able to fully pay for transportation and the cost of the collaborative tuition agreement for a student of ours who is 20, attending Project Search. And that also ties in then for our indicator 14 data, which is the indicator that I talk about of what students are doing after they graduate. In 2020, we only had 28.6% of students that were in competitive community-based employment placements, and the goal would be that we'd want to increase that to approximately 30%, given improved instruction, improved opportunities through Project Search, and then also looking at the percentage of students who are participating in formal transition assessment, increasing from the current rate of 0% to 50% of transition age students participating in a formal transition assessment. Up until this year, we did not have a formal tool to measure transition needs that includes everything from employment, jobs and job training, and community living, so independent living skills, budgeting, those kinds of things. We're going to accomplish this goal by the next slide. And the first three things have already been accomplished. So we are periodically reviewing and altering the program for the student who's at Project Search. And as we need to shift and analyze how that program fits the students' needs, it's giving us a lot of information, and I think also giving the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation a great deal of information about how are we programming for our students with the most significant disabilities at that level. We are also, we've done a review of individuals using the transition planning inventory. Like I said, nobody was using it, and now we're starting to use it, so that's a good thing. And we've already purchased that. So I'm really excited about that, because it's just a better measure to, for people to put their heads around rather than informal conversation. And you can go on to the next slide, please. Then our big goal is to develop a program vision and design plan by the end of this school year with a 3-year plan for implementation. We are hoping to do that by working through our stakeholder group, which will include parents, 2 teachers for the intellectually disabled, and building administration, and myself. We will be starting that particular planning after the 2 teachers who are currently involved in the Transition Improvement Grant activities. We are all attending the Wisconsin Transition Conference, which is one of the best transition conferences in the Midwest. So really excited about that. And then we will come together, and hopefully by the end of the year, we will be able to present a review of how our student did at Project Search and present our program and our 3-year plan for improving transition programming for students in Prescott. So there you go. Any questions?
Yeah, Vicki, do you have any questions here?
I had no idea that this was something that I guess that the school could do and, you know, is available for students that need that help. So, I mean, that not only includes students, that includes their parents. So this is fantastic to offer.
Well, and we worked really hard to get this one particular student into Project Search. And the previous year, they were kind of turned away. And then this year, we were like, no, come on, we've had this kid working at the high school. And so he's there. We've had to kind of shift some things around based on individual needs and things like that. But, you know, it would be something that if we didn't have, that would be $17,000 out of our budget.
Yeah, this is fantastic.
It's a lot of money.
To have this grant available, to get it, because you knew you had a student who needed it, and you're making this work. So this is pretty cool. Like I said, I had no idea that this was out there, so.
And once we have our plan, I'm going to apply for it again.
Nice.
Helen?
No, I don't really have any questions. I know quite a bit about this, but I think that Project Search is a great program, so if we can also mimic that within our school district, that would be fabulous.
Right.
Long term. So I think that would be what I would like to see in the future, because we have a lot of students that would really, really benefit from this within our town. So that's the only thing that maybe switching over and within your, whatever you propose, making sure that eventually that goal would be to bring it in to Prescott. So, yeah.
Katie, any comments here?
I'm just glad we're going above and beyond for our students.
All right, Tanya?
And Vicki, you brought up something that you didn't know that we did this, and I think that a lot of people don't know, but we're required by law to educate our students with a disability that qualify through age, is it 22 in Wisconsin as well, or 21?
It's 20, the year that they turn 21.
Through that 20, yep. And so like this is a responsibility that a school district has that I think our greater community doesn't realize that this is a requirement for us. And so it's really great that we're able to be able to provide these services and expand on these services. Districts I work at, and Sandy used to work at one as well, we pay for placements to go to other schools to provide some of these services. And Sandy, do you remember how much that would cost us per child?
Oh, God.
It was like around 80.
Yeah.
$1,000
per child
per year, and that includes transportation and stuff. And so for us to be able to do something like that within our district, being small and stuff like that, we don't have access to those kind of resources. And so I'm very, very proud that we're able to build something like that here and meet those individual needs.
And they are going out in the community too. I mean, it's Project Search is a program that's sort of collaborated on with the Division of Voc Rehab.
Yeah.
I always thought it was a program that was intended for individuals with the most significant disabilities, but it's not. Students have to be pretty independent in order to participate.
Cool.
So we've been having to add some additional supports and that sort of thing, which is working out just fine. But I would really like to see us grow our own transition programming in district. Maybe a pseudo project search, but something that is really targeting those kids with the most significant disabilities, because every school district around us has that need. So I'm excited, and I want to call out our businesses in Prescott are wonderful. They partner with us. Two Rivers, Patax. We've got kids. The food shelf. They're going all over the place doing jobs, and it's just really wonderful. This is a great community.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Add anything?
Just congratulations and nice job. I mean, that's amazing. Is there a grant available typically every year, or what's the timing on that?
I think it is an annual grant.
Okay.
So, but you have to apply for it every year.
Sure.
So I'll kind of see how we do with these goals, which are totally attainable. But then I think with the stakeholder group, and I could certainly, Helen, if you'd be interested in sitting on the stakeholder group, to come together and brainstorm what are some next steps that we can do, right?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Sandy. Nice job.
And just before you walk away, I just wanted to kind of have you bring to attention a little bit of, it is a required service, right?
Yep.
It is the number one priority for school boards and school districts. Know that the legislature gavels back in January 2025. The biennium budget, how we're funded as public schools, will move forward and will probably be resolved no sooner than June or July of 2025. Currently, special education is in Fund 27. It's just a bucket to provide the services. Are you reimbursed by the state to 100% cover the costs of serving students with disabilities?
No. Our school district receives approximately $600,000 in state aid for special education, which in a budget of $2.5 million. That's not very much. And we only receive about $300,000 in federal funds, federal flow-through dollars. So to provide this required programming and provide it at a high quality to an increasingly more complex student population, it costs money. And then the school district is required to cross-subsidize the remaining cost. Incidentally, state aid can only be used for personnel. So we're paying our teachers a portion of their salary out of state aid. The rest of it is coming out of the cross-subsidy. And we can only use federal flow-through dollars for supplies, curriculum, equipment. We cannot use that to support staff. So there are lots of rules around how you can use the dollars, but it's really important that people write letters, contact legislators, because the state of Wisconsin has a funding system that's broken.
And I think that, one, I just appreciate as an administrator for you showing fiscal responsibility. It's innovative to go after a grant. It would be nice if school districts didn't have to be in competitive situations to fund required mandated services, especially for students that are needing the support and safety net. Currently, our district takes $1.8 million out of Fund 10 and transfers it into special education to cover those additional costs. At this time, we receive about 30 cents on the dollar. There are some proposals moving forward to elevate the amount of money that would go into special education. For every dollar that would come from Madison that went into special education would be a dollar that would go back into Fund 10. And those are the dollars that we just recently had to go to the community and ask for going above our cap to give us $1.2 million to cover our costs. And so it is something I would encourage everybody. You've done a nice job writing letters, continuing to educate our community on what we do as a district. The challenge, I think, for all of us is that $4 billion continues to sit in Madison, and it is based on the taxpayers' money, and it has not come back to fund our students.
And incidentally, what the proposal is on the superintendent's budget this year is to try to fund special education. Well, she's asking for a big ask, but ideally we'd like to see it funded at about 60%, so double what we're receiving now, which actually sounds like a lot, but in the scheme of things, if you look at our neighbor in Minnesota, they are funding their special education at approximately 60% of payroll personnel. About 54% of contracted services gets funded through the state, and about 47% of supplies and equipment is funded through the state. In Wisconsin, we don't get any state aid for supplies and equipment, and there's no differentiation between a contracted service provider, which is usually way more expensive, and payroll personnel.
All right.
See why it's so difficult.
Yeah. All right, thanks, Sandy.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. And we're, the item D on the new agenda, type A publication regarding board election.
So at this time of the year, it's important for the district to announce that there are, each of our board members have different terms. Currently, the two incumbents, our board president, Mike Matzik, and Vicki Rudolph, are up for election in April. Anybody that's interested in running for a seat to be and serve our community, our students and staff, is welcome to apply by 5 p.m. on Tuesday, January 7th, 2025, in the main office of the district that's located in the lower level of our middle school at 1220 St. Croix Street. Please note that the school district will be closed from December 23rd through January 3rd for our winter holiday, and so it's important for people to understand when that declaration is required by Tuesday, January 7th.
All right. I don't think we'll have any questions on this one. We'll move on to last item, November 5th operating levy outcome.
It's a little different. I'm pretty sure it is, but I can't.
So, as you know, there was an election on November 5th. It also included a presidential election, but also obviously had a referendum for the Prescott Public Schools. This was a follow-up from April, when April was not supported, a difference of a baker's dozen. You understand that the school board members and our staff and administrative team made major cuts with regards to the number of sections that we have at K-5. We reduced one teacher at every single grade level. We did reduce some staffing at our interventions. We left positions for staff that went on and moved outside of the district. We have not filled administrative assistant positions. We have also cut back with regards to our athletic teams, C teams, reduced some of the arts, and removed in-town busing. Those were not easy choices that came with a lot of angst and many meetings twice a month of a school board to go through the necessary changes to make sure that a balanced budget was in place for this academic year. We do have a balanced budget that was adopted by the board in October. We knew that it would be unable to be sustained into the next year, both due to declining enrollment, the lack of funding that many municipalities and counties face for a decade. Schools have been facing it for 30 years. 6 of the previous 8 years, funding per pupil did not increase. Prescott Public Schools is a low-revenue district, meaning that we currently are at the lowest end of the financing structure. We talked throughout the campaign to make sure that people understood that in Wisconsin, school districts are funded not equally, but based on the number, each student that walks through the threshold of a school district receives a different amount of money compared to different districts. Currently, Prescott Public Schools is funded by $74 more than the lowest funded school. And that creates an incredible press and challenge as we continue to provide, as you saw tonight, 2 different departments. Last month, we talked about our tech ed and how we've created our own supply of wood. We're saving taxpayers our supply budget over $60,000. We now have a grant through special education. And so we continue to be innovative, and yet we provide college level to interventions, students with disabilities, to gifted and talented. We have students that are accessing college credits, and we do that. And now you saw on the academic performance that we continue to be in the top 10 both in achievement and growth, and number 1 compared to every other district in the Middle Border Conference. And you'll see soon in some public releases compared to our neighbors of River Falls and Hudson Public Schools. I wanted to just make sure that we took a time in this month of Thanksgiving to thank our community for investing in our students and our staff so that the continued programs, opportunities in academics, the arts, and athletics can continue. And for that, we are very grateful. We do have an obligation to come back to the board, is that we are now, because this referendum was passed in November, the actual revenue will come in this academic year. It is required that the money is kind of use it or lose it. And so it's important for us to come back to you with a budget that will now be increased by $1.2 million. The school board identified 4 specific priorities, and Kara and I are working on that. We've been distracted for the last few weeks on a different matter that we'll get to in a moment. But the primary thing is that number 1 was to make sure that our staff were compensated in an equitable way for the performance that they're producing. As you can see, we are at the top in the state. Not just top in Middle Border. We are top in the state, and the state of Wisconsin is one of the highest performing academic states in the union. And so with that, there should be great pride, both in our families and our staff and our greater community. We're proud of what we are able to do and deliver each and every day on behalf of the Prescott Public Schools. So, as we come back, understand that we have identified that we would begin with compensation. Our HR department has and will be coming back with job studies in which we want to make sure that every position within the organization has a third-party review to be able to do a market competitiveness with making sure that our staff that are supervisors as well as our hourly and licensed staff are equitably compensated for the work they're doing. Secondly, we're going to make sure that the academic programs and the resources that our teachers need and our students need in the classroom are provided. As you know, we are currently engaged in implementing a new early literacy program. We have a K-5 math program that we're looking at and some social studies resources as well. Curriculum for students that has not been able to be within our budget will now continue to move forward. Michael Kosmowski, who oversees oversees our teaching and learning department, works with our teacher leaders, and then also will be giving updates with opportunities where our parents and families can participate in the review of those materials and input on the curriculum that is being provided. Not only the curriculum, but mainly the resources. So we're in a better position to do that. We also will be reinstating dollars for programming that was reduced in the arts and athletics to try to make sure that those budgets are whole. That takes some of the burden off of, if you will, kind of fundraising that falls to many of the athletes, the coaches, the booster clubs, and we appreciate that work. If they want to continue that work, that's great, but we also wanted to make sure that we can try to hold our fees at a rate that allows all students to be able to participate and doesn't break the bank for each family.
Rick, can I just jump in here
Yep.
quick? Do we know, like, when we'll be able to start having the discussions about the money this year that we'll incur as part of the past referendum? When we'll kind of have an idea and see that at a board level?
Yeah, I think we'll be starting, I think, just like we've done with teaching and learning, it'll be a monthly board item. One of the things that will be coming back to you is whether or not you want to give us a finite dollar amount. Our teachers and staff received a 2.5% increase over last year. That is two things. One, matches inflation at this time, but doesn't match inflation that came the year before. We also know that, so it might be something that you would say you want to set aside X amount of dollars out of the 1.2 for salary adjustments within this academic year, or whether or not you want to give us a percentage and that you would like us to do that. It gives Kara an opportunity to model that and give you information, because for every salary that goes up, then Social Security, retirement, and other things go with it, and that would be probably in our preference, but again, you get to make that final decision.
Can we, I mean, to me, this is a great workshop idea
Yeah,
to have
that's
it
what I was
further, so. And again, just so the community knows, you can come to workshops, they're open meetings, we don't make any decisions there, but it's where we just can talk and you can hear our thinking, so I encourage everyone to come, but I think I would love to see a workshop, I think, and kind of work through this and think about whether it is a dollar value or how we work through that.
And there's short-term and then there's long-term
Yeah.
too, right? So there's the long-term one, and I'm hoping, I think that's going to probably play into next year's budget and how that looks.
Yeah,
So,
and
there's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, and you went through multiple scenarios, so you understand that if it had not passed, we were faced with over $500,000 more of cuts and the inability to compensate or raise salaries. So one of the challenges will be is that you will have less money going forward each year for the costs don't stop with regards to the fixed costs that you have to run, to heat, to light, to have fuel. And so there will be an acceleration, but we also have to map out, and that's where Kara with the forecast model will be important. And then obviously the biggest piece would be continuing to make sure that our voice as a community is focused on Madison, that ultimately funds public education, and to date has not changed the funding formula in over 30 years. So, Courtney will take a note that we'll be setting up some type of work session. Obviously, between now and Christmas is oftentimes very busy and difficult, but we'll send out a couple doodle calendars for you to have an opportunity to weigh in.
Do you guys have any questions or comments right now, or?
Well, specifically, I guess, what is the time frame? Do we have a month, a date, when we see that money come into the school district bank account, basically?
Yeah, unfortunately, Kara could probably speak to that better, but it doesn't come in one lump sum. Do you want to just describe how and when funding comes?
It's going to come by municipality.
Okay.
So once I have the calculations, and then
Okay.
we'll get sums from each.
Okay.
But it's not a lump sum,
It's not.
and it's broken out across
It's not
multiple
all at once.
payments.
So
Yeah.
that's where we have to sit down and figure out, like, okay, this is not something we got one amount, we can't do something with that right now, because how is that going to affect, and we got to get the rest of it, okay.
Yeah, fund
Yes.
balance and cash flow matters. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. All right, go ahead, Rick.
Any questions with regards to other topics that you would need at the work session?
Pat, anything on your end?
Not for the work session, I'm glad you talked about that, we're planning to model it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
just continue that model the way of going. I would just like to make a note, somebody mentioned it earlier, like phase 2 of this, though, we should be thinking about taking the 10-year long-range plan and the Vision 2035 and putting that also into the model, but phase 2, but hopefully yet this year, so I guess that was my only comment.
My other thing that I would want information on, we talked about this, and we haven't made any decisions about moving forward, but whether or not we're going to do a more formal study of the teacher salary, the pay scale. We know that we have some gaps where longevity is not something, we don't have a really great plan for longevity. The middle starts to kind of phase out, and so how to look at that and compare to districts too.
Yeah, I think there's definitely 2 tiers. One would
Yeah.
be, we know that your board, as a board, you had identified that you wanted to be in the top, between the 50th and 75th percentile with funding, or I'm sorry, for salaries, for licensed staff. That is the easiest amount, our easiest group to be able to access. It's posted on DPI. We have CISA 11, which has 41 districts reporting. We know that we have fallen below many of our surrounding districts. I think the first thing would be to continue to course adjust for all staff, and then tier 2, which will take some time, but we do have staff that went through, we talked about it, that it's the era of the PPG, when our systems are set up for staff that get more compensation for having credits in a bachelor's and master's level. However, during a period of time, the state changed how staff had to be relicensed, and they de-emphasized having college credits, but they still put a lot of work and performance tasks that staff had to do, and unfortunately, our system only rewards the college credit. And so we have agreed that we've been reaching out and talked when we did our last major salary adjustment for our licensed staff, but that was going to come back. Unfortunately, we didn't have the funds to do so. So our PPG, kind of our staff that have been here more than 10 years, they've kind of plateaued, and we want to make sure that we figure out a way to inflate that back into a reasonable, better curve for them. And then longevity would be another issue of making sure that we compensate people for the longer service hours that they put in. Like we did in 2018, that was done in partnership with our staff, so we'll be looking at, like we do every role throughout this organization, we do it through partnership, and we will be setting up teacher groups to do that. I know that I just saw a couple heads poke in, and there are many different, Tracy knows that we've kind of talked about it a little bit and trying to make sure that we can find the time to start that process.
Yeah, and I just bring that up because I think that's important when we talk about how much money do we need to set aside for our number 1 priority, which was salaries. So.
Yep. Yep. All right. So, Tara, you want to join me?
She ever. Are you so excited for the basketball season?
Well, we have Kara Klatt, who is our finance manager, and myself. This was not a planned part of the presentation until November 11th. On November 11th, there was a city council meeting in which part of the packet had information that was not fully complete, and that's not a surprise. Both the school district and governmental agencies like cities and municipalities receive information at different points in time. It is one of the hardest things to do to be able to build a budget while information is coming in at different times. And so there's obviously, this should have been a day of celebration. It should have been a day of celebration both for the board and our community for investing in our students. Unfortunately, that information that came out of a council packet was not fully baked. It wasn't intended to be fully baked, and that has created kind of a firestorm with regards to innuendos or maybe challenging the competency, the accuracy of information that was presented by the school district. I'm pretty boring. I'm going to share with you there's no smoking gun. There was no intent to provide or mislead the community. All of the information is accurate based on what the school district provided and continues to provide, both on its website and from August all the way through adoption of its budget. There is no inaccuracy with regards to how school districts are asked to report information. There also is a part where there's a baton pass to each of our 5 municipalities that support and make up the Prescott Public Schools. The challenge is that we can do better. And I want to thank Matt Wolf and the mayor because they took the initiative in the summer to reach out to our school board and myself, because they said since COVID, there have not been intergovernmental meetings. And it would be best, and I think acknowledged, that if we have taxpayers who have only one wallet and we are operating and only are able to operate based on the taxes that come in, it would behoove us to make sure that when opportunities align, that we talk about efficiencies. And we have done remarkable things as a school district in a city with regards to student safety, with stoplights, crossing guards. Earlier today, Matt Smith sat in on a meeting in which the city is looking at opportunities for safe passage across Highway 10, both for pedestrians and for bicyclists. You know that this town has been expanding and investing in paths. It's something that benefits our community. It's something our community wants. It is something that we have talked about and been supportive of as well. So earlier today, because of some information that is out on a website that lost the nuance, I think, between how a district conveys information and then the role and function of the municipality to change that into the tax bills that are released in December is unfortunate. Because what I can share with you is that we as a district internally focus on being the best at getting better. We are a continuous improvement district, and you saw the results both on the athletic fields, in the theater, and also, most importantly, in our academics. I can't tell you what's gone wrong. Somewhere, there has been a violation of trust. We presented our information. We reached out to the city to have a conversation about the document that was on and posted on social media. That meeting did not go well. But in order for our community to thrive, it's important that somehow, some way, we get into a better place, because it does not help our community to be in a competitive atmosphere about how taxes are allocated, how taxes are distributed, and who's responsible for it. It has seemed to me, since the election was passed, that there has been finger pointing about the possible impact of what the taxes will be and how it may or may not align with the information that was presented by the school district. I know, and I have put you in a situation as 5 elected members of an organization that is allowing you to take and receive pot shots, in which I would say is embarrassing, in that an opportunity for our city to have stood up and spoken to truth, to share a little bit about the document that is out there, was not finished. That the mill rate, even calculating the school levy tax credit, was dated for 2023. Not their fault, because that information didn't come to the city until today. Legally, every municipality receives that information from the Department of Revenue no later than November 20th. When did the City Council have its business meeting? On Monday, November 11th. When did our community vote on investing in our students? November 5th. There is no way that the district could have all of the information necessary to be able to share with the community on all the permutations across the 5 municipalities, and Prescott is unique because of the TIF and TID. And I have shared previously that impacts our community, and it can be beneficial because it creates a diverse tax base.
Rick, I don't mean to interrupt you, and I know you're trying to do the best you can here. I think we should, I wonder if we could just focus on like the discrepancies. Do you think?
Sure. All right. I'll fast forward to that, is that each organization has a distinct role and lane. The school district is responsible for creating a levy, reporting that levy, and passing that information out to the 5 municipalities. The 5 municipalities have expertise and their own lane to work on and convey that out and calculate both with the county and then the tax bills that go out each December. School districts operate and are required anytime we want to invest in our buildings for bonds and operations, we must go out to the community and have them vote to go above our cap. Cities have some parameters on how much they can expand their budgets, but they do not and are not required to have our citizens vote specifically if they're going to expand a TID or TIF or what they do with it. For example, when a TIF sunsets, that money comes back into the overall tax pool to lower taxes for the community. When one was about to sunset, there is, and again, different role, different function. The city, in its best interest, took money out of a TIF that was sunsetting and pushed it forward to another TID. It's their prerogative. They can do that. So, know that we both agree that November 5th creates a huge dilemma to be able to turn around information and then be able to convey it out in a concise way. Do you want to just share a little bit about the role and function? This is from the Department of Revenue and the manual.
Right, so the upper portion here is the calculation we use for school district responsibility. Total allowable per revenue limit formula minus state equalization aid equals school district tax levy. Then it carries over to municipal responsibility, which is something that we don't as a district get into or are required by Department of Revenue or Department of Public Instruction to calculate.
So it's understanding kind of the role and function, whose role is it? Because information didn't come forward until November 18th through for 2024, and we didn't have all of the documents at the time as we were preparing this presentation. We're going to start and walk you through 23-24, where everything is available on the Department of Revenue, Department of Public Instruction, and you can access this information and you can see that these are documents that show how much we levied in 23-24 to the Prescott City. You can see on the top left, on column 1, it shows the overall equalized value. All right, and it has a little word about tit out. That'll be more important in a little bit, right? But what we do know, the difference between last year and this year is that the amount of money, the value of all our property among our 5 municipalities increased by $100 million. This is all a simple math problem. If the denominator gets bigger, the numerator or the overall number goes down. The only thing that Prescott has done is added through election another $1.2 million to the equation. This is the typical process. Our clerk each year, you can see that Pat Block signs it, and it goes over to the clerk at the city, and this happens in October of each year. You can see that 23-24, the actual certified Prescott levy was around $4.2 million. This is the final mill rate of property taxes. What you can see is it tells you the year. You see the municipality is listed, and you can see how it breaks out for the county, local, and technical college. What it does say is certified amount. What you can see is that the city has added just shy of $700,000. This is not money that the district receives. It shows up on their reports as the school district.
Hey, Rick, I'm just going to jump in here too, because I want to make sure the board can ask questions while we see these.
Yes,
but
please.
just so this is last year's tax statement, right?
Yep.
We're not talking about this year. This is last year's.
Yep.
I want to make sure that's clear. And if the board, you guys have any questions? I mean, this is kind of, you're hearing this too for the first time, so just jump in if you have questions.
And part of the rationale for this, as you can see, is that the calculations and how we report our mill rate shows up on this official document. This official document we have not received for 2024 yet in this same format. But what you can see is the equalized value at the very bottom for the school district is .0077. $7.70 for $100,000. That number is accurate. That number is used in the calculations. That number is on the city's document. The calculation is exactly what we then compared. What will the change be between 2023 and 2024? Right? So how do you get to 4.8 million? It's because you have the district levy that comes to invest in our kids, but you also have $600,000 or $700,000 that is going back into the TID for each TID has its own rules, kind of like with regards to our infrastructure.
I mean, this is, the reason for this slide is because TIDs are in property tax statements.
Yep.
In Prescott this is not uncommon, something that
Yep, this
we're
happens
not
every year,
that
but it
familiar
is
with, but-
unique to Prescott.
And if we can ask questions, because that last one we talked about TID through this, and I just wanted to clarify that, that TID money, this is 2023, so it's not the current one, but I call it TID, I normally see it as TIF, so TID, TIF, it's the same thing, but that is not school district money, correct? The $693,000, it's not money we receive as taxes.
We do not receive that money.
So it is tax dollar money. It's put on our line because the city has a choice to put it on our line or another line. They put it on our line.
Just to be transparent, I can't tell you.
Okay.
Right, it is appropriate. We did talk with the Department of Revenue. We're not in any way, shape, or form saying it shouldn't show up there.
Sure.
But what I would
It doesn't
share
for other districts,
is that
though.
there's nothing on this document or in presentations that would share with anybody that looks at it.
Yeah.
That nuance,
Sure.
that it includes both our district levy
Yep.
and the TID.
You're right. And so the separation there, it's not separated. It just all gets clumped together. So if you didn't have a separate line item saying what that TID was, it looks like it just says school district there.
Correct.
And so just to be clear, and I think this is a lot of the miscommunication that's going on, is that all of the money, and this is last year's, is not school district money. We don't get that money. We don't get the TIF district money. We don't get the TID district money. The city doesn't vote on that money. It's something that's decided by the city.
Right.
And only Prescott pays for that portion of it, TIF and TID, the city of Prescott?
I believe that is true.
Okay.
The other thing you can see is then there's a straightforward calculation. I'll have Kara, if you just want to read, how do they get to the mill rate on the far right?
So the actual certified PSD levy amount, the 4.2 million, basically rounded. The city adds the basically 700,000, right? So that there's let's see.
Then there's the assessed value, right? And that assessed value, again, is in the lane of each municipality. School districts do not control assessed values. It is very difficult for us to gather, but that also is the lane of what and why there are treasurers in each municipality to have that conversation. But you can see the overall becomes the denominator, and then it calculates out a mill rate, which is ultimately how the amount of your property will be multiplied by that number, and that is your tax base. The difficulty is you can see on the school district's report, it shows that it's 0.0077, right? $7.70 on $100,000. That is, and part of what is used for the lottery credit, there is nothing inaccurate with that information, nor how it was calculated. But it's equalized, which allows us, and just like in science, the ability to take water boils at 100 degrees or 212. Just depends on if you're Celsius or Fahrenheit. It freezes at 0 or 32. It has to have an equalized value because assessed values differ by each site. Then, this did not exist at the time of November 11th. And this is the tax increment worksheet. This is something that we received and obtained from the Department of Revenue. Anybody else can as well.
This is still last year's, Rick, right?
Yep.
We're not, yeah.
Yep. And it just shows you that the process every year follows, but you can see where the baton pass occurs. So it's like a teeter-totter. Reading left to right, columns A, B, and C are the responsibility of school districts. As you get to column D, E, and F, those are the responsibilities of the municipality. So if you were to take a line and draw from the top down and go from column C left, you'll see that the school district last year, there's our levy, 4.2. You have the denominator, and it calculates the mill rate. But then they multiply the district value by the value of the TID. So it comes back in, and that's where you can see the $700,000 that goes into funding the TID. Again, we don't have that information ahead of time. It's something that is best described, not by a school district. We have run our information to respond with our mill rate and the calculations. Which companies and consultants have you worked with to verify the calculations that you've done for this year, starting with Baird?
Yeah.
How often do you meet with them?
Baird Consultants, I meet with them weekly, sometimes more than weekly, to confirm the numbers, and all the way up to referendum is still passed, so that's an ongoing process throughout the year. And Department of Revenue, we had several conversations with them in the past week, 10 days, right? DPI, when we process everything and calculate our numbers with the equalization, it all gets processed through DPI, so that's where we receive the notice of certification for each municipality. And then also those numbers are transferred to the county as well.
And the reason why the city can't get its final numbers is because all of the school districts in the state couldn't certify until after the referendums of November 5th. I'll go back to, it is not easy for a finance department in a school district or a city to have to get this information at the last minute and turn it around for December. But this now we're going to start to transition into what you can see is that nothing changed this year. The same process, the same calculations are used. But you'll see how numerators and denominators change and where some confusion occurs and why two people in a keyboard can confuse and create and admonish elected officials with regards to their role and function in providing service to our community. You see that the overall levy this year was $4.5 million, and then that went forward. You see that we have the tax levy certificate signed by our district and then presented to the Department of Revenue and then to each city and municipality. The amount of the levy was $4.6 million. This is with regards to the overall value. This is what has created a lot of controversy. And it goes back to that the school district's levy was $4.6 million, yet you can see that the school line shows 5.2. And I'm rounding, right? There's an addition of $530,000 that's added onto the school levy and then taxed. It divides by the assessed value, and that's where you can see that the overall mill rate then in the last column is escalated compared to what the district was reporting of 7.66. What I would share with you, and in talking with the Department of Revenue, is understand that this document, we have added 2 pieces of information. Right? We have included that the TID is included in that certified levy amount. Kara, can you just share our conversation with the Department of Revenue and how they thought this could be more illustrative and providing information for our community?
During the conversation we had with the Department of Revenue, when we had the conversation, we just said that we went back to try to educate ourselves to where the basically $2 million came from. And she specified that, they're adding back in the TID there, and it could have been maybe better demonstrated to the public that that was in fact added into that school line.
Note that this document does have additional information on it. We have chosen not to report it because it is not finished and it won't be accurate as of today. As you can see that at the time that this was shared on November 11th, there were only 2 organizations that had finalized and certified their information. That is the School of Prescott and the Technical College. Obviously, that's what their business meeting was on the 11th. The unfortunate thing is that not only is this document in the packet, and without context, without information about the TID, is that when there was discussion about the overall impact, it was never addressed. There is no conversation. You can go and listen to the city council meeting. I have listened to it twice. Kara has listened to it. I had Courtney listen to it. And at no time was there a question about the TID. At no time did the presenter ever mention that the TID was there, but that there was a difference and a discrepancy in our mill rates. Unfortunately, the school level credit also shows that it was from 2023. That's the data point that came in today. Know that the municipalities within the Prescott School District are receiving $3 million of tax relief flow through specifically from Madison to each municipality. That's an increase of 7% over last year.
Rick, are you talking about the school levy tax credit?
Yep.
I just want to clarify.
That's on the bottom line, right?
Yeah.
So if that number goes up, and it did, it will then, you have a larger numerator divided by a denominator, the mill rate will change. That is subtracted, not added, right? And you see it on the left-hand side in bars that it's subtracted. Unfortunately, what's on social media does not have that information, nor did this document show that it was subtracted, which is usually used with parentheses that go around it. Thus, we know for a fact tonight that the total tax mill rate will not be 0.1634. What it is, I can't tell you. That's the responsibility of the city, and ultimately will show up in future reports. But what I can tell you with certainty is that that mill rate that is on that document from November 11th is going to be different. And it's the same thing that I share and Kara share from August through October, is that one thing we'll guarantee as we build our budget is that these numbers will change. We do it at our annual meeting, we do it at every board meeting, and we did it at every board work session. And unfortunately, that was not done at a city level. You also will see that the assessed value, this is going back to 2023 to 2024, the assessed value for Prescott City actually goes down. It stays flat. And yet we know that the municipalities' overall values, on average, went up by 10%. Do you want to describe line 4? All right.
I think we should move forward faster.
Yeah.
So here's where it gets really complicated. School districts don't control TIDs. We don't have that information, but the TID did increase, and it should. That's why it's called a TIF, a tax increment financing. It's accelerating. There's more value in that property because businesses are building. Businesses are selling. These are good things. But right now, that acceleration was 5%. We didn't know what it would be. How would we know? Because this document didn't exist. This document didn't exist on November 11th. This document didn't exist until November 18th.
So Rick, can I just jump in here? So this is a worksheet, and is this certified, or is it still is this a working document?
No, this was submitted to the Department of Revenue.
Okay, just so the first circle in column C, that's our mill rate. This is the part I wanted to kind of just make sure we understand. the mill rate there shows it's a 0.0076.
Yep.
So the mill rate, that we communicate, I want to get to the point of
This
the
is
mill rate that
identical
we
to what we
communicated.
reported. Yep.
The mill rate that we communicated during the referendum
Correct.
of a $6.60 increase was basically
Because the previous
subtracted.
year was $7.70.
But the 660
This is
is what-
$7.76.
So our calculations when we communicated to the public were accurate, and this kind of backs that up. Is that fair?
That'd be fair.
So I just,
Based
I
on
don't,
what we're required to do, based on the equalization on how schools are funded.
we're
That is
getting
true.
a little bit into the weeds, Rick, but I appreciate all the detail. I want to make sure that we, are clarifying that the district provided accurate numbers to the community when we went to referendum, and it's backed up with what we see here on the worksheet
Correct.
that was submitted.
So this is,
The sample document obviously got out and circulated, and it didn't do any good. It caused a lot of confusion. And I think, that's, as a district, I think that's where we wanted to, as a board. Do you guys have any
Yeah.
questions here?
Well, yeah, do you?
well, so this, you, as a district, this is how we communicated the maintenance referendum, correct? We had to get information out there, granted it was like in April, but we were looking ahead at what was coming up for taxes, because that year's tax bill had already come out. So we're looking at what is it going to be next year. The big game changer for all of this year was that everybody got reassessed. So Prescott, with their new assessed values, which we use equalized, but they've got assessed values, right? Is that
It
what?
stays pretty much the same with
Change
that.
stuff?
And
That
so
stay the same?
I think, and I would just want to simplify this as simple as we can make it. And I want to reflect back to the city shared in a packet. It wasn't like a big discussion about all the details like this, but they shared a sample worksheet, which was up there. In that sample worksheet, people saw the school district tax line, and in it, it was higher, and it looked like it was going to be taxed more than we had shared, which I would be super upset about too. The difference is that this is the thing that was shared, the exact thing minus the little white stuff on the side. There was more at the bottom. So the difference here is that it didn't separate the TIF district, and that was super confusing. And then it doesn't say on there the separation between this is what the city gets from this line versus the school district gets from that line. So it looked misleading. I would say that is not super transparent and clear, and probably could have been a discussion to help clarify things.
I'll jump into it. This is something that happens pretty much every year.
Every year.
It's part of the process, but I think that there's just confusion among the community members on why the numbers were off. And it actually confused us too, because we're not
Oh, yeah.
experts on how TIFs work or TIDs work, so I think this caught us off guard as well. I don't think it's at any fault to anybody. I really don't, from either the city or the school district. I think information gets disseminated in the social media, and it causes a lot of confusion, and which is why we're talking about it tonight, because it seemed like it was enough, it warranted enough, or it had a big enough impact, or where it warranted us to talk about it tonight. I feel like we got enough information. Rick, if you want to hold off a second here, but I want to open it up. Does the board have other questions?
Well, I think I just have a comment. When we went for the maintenance referendum, I remember we had a big meeting in here. It was a workshop that we had. We had the city here, we had Baird here. We were looking at the numbers, going through all of that, and at that time, is that when one of the TIDs sunsetted? Is that happened around the time of the maintenance referendum from the condos?
You're asking a lot of questions.
I
I
know.
don't want to think. I don't think we should be touching
But I
right
mean,
now.
but the city was like,
we have that
we're
information.
having a, I remember there was something about a district, one of the TID district coming off, and they were looking at doing this, but they were cooperating with us, they were giving us numbers, we were giving them our numbers, we were working together trying to figure all this out, and it went really, I mean, I think it worked a lot better then, so this maybe getting approached this summer and saying we need to work together again. I mean, obviously we do.
I think, Rick, yeah, and I agree, we need to work together on messaging, and that was a specific ask, was would the city be willing to come and share tonight, and that, they declined. And so I do think that it would be nice to ask that. Well, they did, but.
Yeah, it's on short notice. I don't want to, again,
For sure.
I don't want to be pointing fingers at anybody here.
I'm just saying that those are things that we want to do, and I think that the messaging right now would be a good partnership together to share out, because I feel like is some distrust for whatever reason. People probably have reasons with the school district, and this does not it doesn't help clarify that at all. And so I do think that there's some confusion. We should work more closely with them. When this stuff comes out, I wish it was kind of us sharing together to clarify, because we're both being discussed or clarified or included on the same line. And so, correct. And we get some of the taxes, the city gets some of those taxes.
So Rick, again, just to really, clarify, so our levy doesn't change. We still levy the same amount, the 4.65.
That is accurate.
The TID money gets added on to our line item of the tax statement, which is common. That happens. That's not uncommon.
For the city of Prescott.
For the city of Prescott. Our mill rate on the 4.65 still remains the 7.76, but because of the TID money that gets added, that inflates the mill for the overall line of the line that for the school district.
So you can see on the 2004 tax increment worksheet that just was posted.
Extra half. It's a $530,000 additional levy on top of our levy,
right,
which impacts the mill rate overall.
And you can see that, right? It's showing the mill rate is different than our 7.766.
But how that actually affects taxes in the city of Prescott, and then the city doesn't have that information. They don't have to have that information until a set date. So up to this point still,
they're gathering numbers.
They're gathering numbers.
Everybody's gathering numbers at this time of year to finalize.
And get
statements
it all
and everything.
out. So
yeah, this isn't due till sometime in December.
Yeah.
And then again, lastly, that we don't get any of the additional money. We have to stay within our 4.657 because that's
right. It gets stacked and it can't go above the 11.488 that we receive.
Okay.
Board, do you have any other questions, Pat?
No. No question.
I think we can wrap this up, Rick. I think you did a good job explaining this, but.
So the last data point that came in is just to recognize that an additional, everybody knew this table has existed, and the city knew that we would be receiving another 7%. That wasn't factored in on November 11th, but what I can tell you is that $3 million will be invested into the community and all 5 municipalities. Know that there is a formula, and it specifies that the higher value your house is, you will receive more of a tax credit. If you're above the municipality average, you get more money. If you're at the average, you'll be getting about the 7% increase on the tax credit, and if you're below, you get less.
And the tax credit comes from where?
The tax credit, believe it or not, comes straight from Madison. It's not as coming from the district, but no, a little wrinkle, truth be told, is that it is claimed when the legislature tells you that they gave more money to public education. This falls in the public education bucket.
Yeah.
And so they increased by $1.2 billion for tax relief. They call it educational funding. Fine, that's great. We'd love if everybody can have lower taxes. Taxes are about values. This is the value of a public education. Here you can see when your tax bill comes, this is for Badger City. On the top right-hand side of your tax bill, you will see a tax credit that is coming straight from Madison. It does not come to the school district, does not flow through. It is deducted from your overall tax on the school line. And that is on this page where it says school levy tax. You see that it's $821,000. I believe it is just shy of $900,000. So that will, because the assessed value did not change, right? Denominator stayed the same. The numerator went up. The mill rate will go up, and that mill rate in the left column is deducted from the total tax. And so it will lower the overall tax, and then on top of it, it will be applied directly on the school lot.
And that information, again, that just came through like today or yesterday, right?
That value came out today.
Okay.
Statewide.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Helen, you have any questions?
No.
Anybody have anybody else?
No.
All right.
Thank you, Kara.
Thanks, Kara. Thanks for sticking it out here. I'm just winging it right now. I just want to clarify that as a district, we're responsible for district finances and levies, and our district levy. And it's really hard when you start, talking about property tax statements and the different variables that go into that. And when we're on top of that, we go to referendum, and there's different calculations that go into that if it passes or fails. There's a lot of moving parts for the district, for the city, for all of us. And I think, everybody's got their own jobs to do, and they do it right, and I believe they do it well. I feel like this is for me, the bottom line is there's a miscommunication with an incomplete document that gets posted, and people comment on that. And I think it causes more harm to the community and confusion among the community members, among the school board members as well, and our finance staff. I wish we had had Barrett here. I think that would have, they do a really nice job articulating a lot of this stuff too, but they unfortunately are busy with other referendums that they've passed that they're supporting. So I think I'm glad we got a chance to talk about this and try to clear some of the confusion up. I'm sure it's going to spark more questions and more comments. So is there anything else before we move on, board, that you would like to comment on before we move on?
No.
All right. I gotta find I think that's the last item. So the next item, we're moving on past information and discussion. And there is a chance for public comment here. I'll just reiterate that we'll keep the allotted time to 3 minutes per individual, and go from there. And again, same rules apply as the previous section of public comment. So is there anybody that would care to be recognized at this time?
Good evening, board. I don't know what you require, like what the city council requires as far as name and address or anything like that, but I am a resident of Prescott. My husband and I have...
Just name and you said Prescott, so that would be good to if you know your name.
Ruth Gregby.
Okay.
We live here in town, and my husband could not be here tonight because he's with our 2 small children. We have 1 student in the district, and we have 1 student entering the district next year. First of all, your silence is deafening. The fact that it took you so many days to say anything did not help you at all. I know many of you have Facebook pages that you use, and the fact that you were silent on that told everybody what they needed to know. I genuinely wonder if the school board or the school superintendent thought that he could get this passed under the radar and that nobody would figure out their actual numbers and that, oh, sorry, there was a miscommunication and it is what it is. That's what a lot of people think. I think it's really sad that there are a lot of teachers and other staff members of the school who are afraid to speak out or say anything in fear of retaliation, because there has been retaliation on staff in the past. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And I think that that's really unfortunate. I think it's really unfortunate that you continue to say that this referendum was for the students, for the students, for the students, yet with these numbers that have come to light, a lot of these students are going to be going home to homes where mom and dad now have to decide what they're going to buy for groceries or how they're going to pay their mortgage, because their mortgage is going to go up because their taxes are going up. That's unfortunate for these students. That does not help these students. A lot of students going home is a safe space, and now you're bringing tension into that safe space for those parents. I hope you realize that. I know a lot of people have said it's not about the money, $1, $5, $7, $33 annually, whatever all the numbers that have been thrown out. Yeah, sure, a lot of people can afford that, but a lot of people can't. And there's already people listing their homes in Prescott. I know 3 of them, because they're leaving, because the taxes are too much. If you guys would have done better and communicated sooner with the city and maybe had one person designated from the school board to attend city council meetings, maybe something could have been caught sooner. But to continuously blame the city over and over and over again for your own shortcomings is disgusting. Because you are probably, I would say, in my opinion, more at fault than the city is. Because they weren't asking for a referendum, you were. It's your job to know the numbers inside and out. You pay people obscene amounts of money for what? Clearly, they probably missed the mark too. Maybe it's time to find a new firm, the Bayard or whatever. They're obviously not doing their job. You will be replaced this April, next April, and the April following that. And Rick, quite honestly, watch yourself, because when the board is replaced, you will be too.
Anybody else care to be recognized?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Judy McDonough, resident of Prescott, 18-year teacher in the district. Want to clarify, I'm not making those copious amounts of money that were just mentioned, so let's be careful how we include bias. We're teaching that in 5th grade right now. Bias in your argument or presentation. So words like everybody, that's an extreme amount of bias because we don't speak for everybody. Also, this wasn't Rick's referendum. Again, 18 years in the district, blood, sweat, and tears, scar from my first day when we used to have to cut tennis balls to protect the wax on the floor, so actual blood. Mumbling doesn't bother me, I teach 5th graders. So, to clarify, thanks board for supporting the teachers, thanks for supporting our students, 2 of which are my own, who are in larger classrooms, larger class sizes this year. Again, as an 18-year veteran in the district, I would say that many of us are not afraid to speak up. We do feel supported. My administrator would tell you maybe I speak up more than I should. I've never been reprimanded for that. I'm not fearful of being reprimanded for that. We have the ability to have open dialogue. We always have. It's why not a single district in the area has outscored 5th grade in the last few years in scores. We're doing our jobs. We need the support of the district and the community. So thank you to those that did vote to support the teachers. It's really hard to go on social media and feel like you are being degraded, bashed, and not valued by the very people whose children you spend more time with than your own. So I will leave it.
Anybody else care to be recognized? Come on, Mark.
I spent 3 hours with our people That's fine. I said more people than our phone.
Can we listen, please? You guys have been talking throughout this entire thing. You barely hear them.
Mark.
Let's, can we please show some respect here? Thank you. Go ahead, Mark.
I've been in the district a while.
Can you, again, I'm sorry, you did start over again, Mark.
Mark Elmer.
Yeah.
I live in Oak Grove. I have served on the school board and many committees. I'd like to say the townships, the city council, the school board make Prescott an excellent place to raise a family. And I'm proud of it. There's going to be differences of opinion on how do you get to the right place. And it would be very nice if people could be civil about it without threats and accusations, and you can work through the process. Tonight there was a lot of numbers up there. And I think the school district did a fairly good job of explaining how they came to their numbers, and I'm sure the city has done a good job of figuring out how they got to their numbers. The thing is, it was $1.2 million that's going to the school district. The community voted in a very close vote that $1.2 million was worth it. And now that it's passed, there's a lot of ways of trying to get that reversed because the losers didn't like it.
Second time.
And it happens.
It didn't pass.
Please.
For your politeness.
Yeah, thank you.
There's a point to be made.
Referendums come again and again with different amounts, and people are fortunate enough to give their opinion and vote. And just like a lot of the elections here, we don't always agree, but I would hope that we could agree to be civil. And it's not bad to have competition for school board seats. It's not bad to have split types of boards. It's not bad to have unanimous boards. Sometimes that's because they've worked behind the scenes enough to agree that this is what should come forward. There's so many moving parts to making a community successful, and to pick one or two little items and try to blow it up, I think is shameful. I hope that Prescott can do better. Our community deserves it. Definitely our students deserve it. And the civil servants in all municipalities, the teachers, the administration, everybody, not just the school employees, but all the communities. They deserve our respect because it's a hard job and it's very thankless. And you take arrows upon arrows upon arrows. You get commented, you don't post on Facebook quick enough. Well, that is not a legitimate, vetted media. There's no liable, anything can be said. I do not believe that Facebook should be the go-to for your information. It's a viable point to point out information, but there's no credibility to it. And I'm sure I'm close to my 3 minutes and I'm just rambling. I just want to thank the board for your effort. I want to thank the city. I saw a lot of them here. The city council, I saw a lot of them here.
Yep.
That is impressive. I see the city treasurer. She's here as well, listening, taking the information in. Very bright individual and very good at her job. We just need to get on the same page. I believe that the information brought forward is correct today. The $1.2 million on this referendum was voted for, and I'm glad it passed, and I'm not ashamed to say it. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Anybody else? All right. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. We're going to take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. We're adjourned. Thank you.